The story begins in 1950 inside a car factory where several cars are being assembled. Among them was a special red car that a mechanic was working on. While he was checking the engine, suddenly the car's hood slammed shut on its own with great force, crushing the mechanic's hand badly. He was immediately rushed to the doctor. Later, another mechanic came to inspect the car. While he was inside, some ash from his cigar fell onto the seat. He ignored it and kept working, unaware that this small mistake would soon lead to something terrible. Hours passed, and the factory workers finished their shift and went home. As they were leaving, the supervisor noticed that the red car's headlights were still on. He walked over to the car to turn them off. But the moment he opened the door, the dead body of the mechanic with the cigar fell out of the car. 28 years later, in 1978, we see a student named Dennis driving to his friend Arnie's house. Arnie was a shy, nerdy, and quiet guy, quite the opposite of Dennis, but the two were good friends. It was the first day of their new school year. At school, they took out their new books from their lockers, and soon a new girl named Lee arrived. Her beauty immediately caught everyone's attention, and Dennis was instantly attracted to her. Later, when Dennis and Arnie were driving home, Arnie suddenly noticed an old red car parked outside a house. He asked Dennis to stop the car. When they went closer, they saw that it was a rusted, broken-down junk car, the same red car from the factory in the beginning. Despite its terrible condition, Arnie instantly fell in love with it. The car's owner, George, came out and told them the car's name was Christine. It had belonged to his brother, who had died just a few weeks earlier. George wanted to get rid of the car as soon as possible, so he offered to sell it for only $250. Dennis tried to convince Arnie not to waste his money, saying it would cost a fortune to repair such a wreck, but Arnie ignored him and bought the car immediately. When Arnie returned home that evening, his parents asked about the car. His mother was furious and scolded him, ordering him to return it right away. But Arnie refused because he had bought it with his own saved money. His mother, being very strict, declared that the car would not stay in their house. So Arnie and Dennis took the car to a local garage. The owner of the garage was a rude man and initially refused to let them park the car there. But Arnie politely kept requesting, and eventually, the man agreed to let him keep the car. On their way back, Dennis asked Arnie why he bought such a junk car like Christine. Arnie smiled and said, "I didn't choose the car chose me." The next day at school, during lunch, Dennis was waiting for Arnie, but he didn't show up for a long time. Dennis went looking for him, and then he saw something shocking. A bully named Buddy was harassing Arnie, threatening him with a knife and snatching his lunchbox. Dennis tried to intervene, but Buddy threw the lunch to the ground and pushed Arnie onto it. Arnie's glasses fell off, and Buddy crushed them under his feet, laughing at Arnie's helplessness. Enraged, Dennis attacked Buddy, but soon Buddy's gang surrounded him. Luckily, a teacher arrived just in time to stop the fight. Arnie told the teacher that Buddy had threatened him with a knife, but Buddy denied it. When the teacher ordered him to empty his pockets, the knife fell out. As a result, Buddy and his gang were sent to the principal's office, and Buddy was expelled from school. Weeks passed, and Arnie kept working hard to repair his car. The garage owner noticed his dedication and offered him a job, saying that in exchange for his work, Arnie could collect spare parts for his car. Arnie happily agreed and devoted himself completely to fixing Christine. But he didn't realize that, as he worked, his attachment to the car was growing dangerously strong. The next day, some of Dennis's friends were talking about the new girl, Lee. They dared Dennis to go talk to her in the library. Accepting the challenge, Dennis approached Lee, but before he could say much, she told him she already had a boyfriend. Embarrassed and disappointed, Dennis walked away from the table while his friends laughed. That evening, Dennis went to visit Arnie since they hadn't met in a while. But when he saw him, Arnie looked completely different. Confident, stylish, and without his glasses, almost like a completely new person. He didn't stay long to talk and quickly left for the garage. Arnie's mother told Dennis that she was very worried about him and his car because she had heard that the car's previous owner had died inside it from suffocation. Disturbed, Dennis decided to meet George, the man who sold Arnie the car. George told Dennis about his brother, how he had become obsessed with Christine after buying it, how his wife and daughter had died inside the car, and how, after his brother's death, the car mysteriously appeared parked outside George's house by itself. Terrified, Dennis decided to investigate. That night, he sneaked into the garage and tried to open the car door, but the radio suddenly turned on by itself, startling him. He immediately ran out before anyone could see him. The next morning, at the school stadium, Dennis was playing football. While focusing on making a perfect goal, he saw Arnie arrive in his now fully restored, shiny red car, Christine. Buddy and his gang were jealous when they saw it. Lee stepped out of the car and kissed Arnie in front of everyone. Dennis, who secretly loved Lee, felt crushed and angry. He lost focus, and a player from the opposing team pushed him hard to the ground, causing him to fall unconscious with serious injuries. Days later, Dennis woke up in the hospital with a cast on his leg and neck. Arnie came to visit him, and Dennis realized how much his friend had changed, from a timid, awkward boy into someone strangely confident and distant. Arnie didn't stay long and soon left. That evening, Arnie went to a drive-in movie with Lee. Inside the car, they began kissing, but when things started to go further, Lee suddenly pulled away and got out of the car. Arnie followed her, confused, and she told him that he seemed to love the car more than her. Before Arnie could respond, it started to rain. He convinced her to get back inside the car. But suddenly, the windshield wipers stopped working, so Arnie stepped out to fix them. While he was outside, Lee began eating something inside the car, when suddenly the radio turned on by itself, and bright lights flashed from the dashboard. Lee started choking as if something invisible was strangling her. Arnie rushed to help, but the car doors had locked on their own. Just in time, Lee managed to open the door, and a nearby man pulled her out, saving her life. Instead of being grateful, Arnie got angry at the man, thinking he was trying to flirt with Lee, but the man had only been helping her breathe. After this, Arnie dropped Lee home. She went inside without saying a word, telling him she never wanted to see him again. Arnie apologized, but Lee was convinced that the car had tried to kill her and that Christine was jealous of her. Whenever she and Arnie were together inside the car, something bad happened. Arnie dismissed her fears, saying they'd talk tomorrow. When he got back into the car, it refused to start, almost as if Christine was upset. Arnie spoke softly to it, saying that no matter what happened with Lee, he would always love Christine. The moment he said that and turned the key, the engine roared to life. He drove straight to the garage, parked Christine, and left. Later that night, Buddy and his gang broke into the garage with weapons. They smashed, kicked, and completely destroyed the car, leaving it in ruins. The next day, Arnie managed to convince Lee to meet him again. They went to the garage so Arnie could retrieve his wallet from the car. But when he saw Christine wrecked and broken, he was devastated. He immediately assumed that Lee had done it. When she denied it, Arnie shouted at her in rage and told her to get out. When Arnie told his parents what had happened, they tried to calm him down and said they would buy him a new car. But this only made Arnie angrier. He knew that, just like Lee, his parents hated Christine, and in his rage, he blamed them for the car's destruction. He shouted that if they had let him keep Christine at home, she wouldn't have been ruined. He continued arguing and said terrible things to them. His father, furious, grabbed him and told him to apologize to his mother, but Arnie only grew more aggressive. When his father tried to stop him, Arnie grabbed him by the neck and nearly strangled him before suddenly letting go. Then, without saying another word, he stormed out of the house. He went straight to Christine and decided to rebuild her completely, piece by piece. But what he saw next shocked him. The car began repairing itself, as if by magic. Arnie stood there, stunned, watching Christine slowly restore her body. Overjoyed, he smiled and asked the car what else she could do. Christine responded by fully and automatically fixing herself, gleaming as if brand new. Later that night, Moochie, one of Buddy's gang members, was seen in the middle of the road robbing a truck. Suddenly, he heard the sound of an engine approaching. When he looked, he saw Christine, completely restored, rolling toward him. Moochie realized Arnie must have found out that he and Buddy were the ones who had destroyed Christine. Terrified, he started apologizing, but Christine's headlights flashed brightly, and she sped toward him. Moochie ran for his life, darting into a narrow alley, thinking the car wouldn't follow him there. But Christine chased him relentlessly. He ran into an old warehouse, trying to hide, but Christine burst through the entrance and cornered him. Moochie pulled out a knife and shouted for Arnie to stop, but Christine forced her way inside and crushed him to death. The next morning, Arnie met Dennis and told him about Moochie's death. Dennis was shocked and couldn't understand how Christine could be perfectly restored after being completely destroyed. Arnie gave no answer and quietly walked away. As he left, Detective Junkins approached him, saying he was investigating both the attack on Christine and Moochie's murder. Arnie claimed to know nothing about it, but admitted he was happy Moochie was dead. This made the detective suspicious. He told Arnie that his girlfriend had testified that the car had somehow repaired itself overnight. Arnie denied everything, calling it nonsense, and left angrily. Later, Arnie called Lee and asked to meet her, but she refused, which made him furious. Meanwhile, Buddy and his friends were out buying alcohol and driving around. On the road, they noticed a car following them. Buddy stopped and got out to see who it was, but the headlights were too bright to make out the driver. When he reversed his car, the other car did the same. That's when Buddy realized it was Christine. Furious, he sped off toward a gas station where his friend Rich worked. He grabbed an iron rod, ready to confront whoever was driving the car. Suddenly, Christine came speeding toward them and rammed straight into Buddy's car, smashing it badly. Buddy thought Arnie was inside and shouted for him to come out, but Christine hit the car again, this time harder, pushing it into the workshop. Don, one of Buddy's friends, was still in the car, and Christine crushed him along with it. Gasoline began leaking from Buddy's car, and moments later, the entire station exploded in flames. Rich was trapped inside and burned to death. Buddy, terrified, tried to run for his life, but Christine followed him relentlessly. Finally, she caught up to him and crushed him completely, burning him to ashes. Hours later, the garage owner heard the sound of an engine outside. He looked and saw Christine, covered in smoke, rolling into the garage. He was confused because Arnie was supposed to be working on another car at that time. Suspicious, he grabbed his gun and approached the car, trying to see who was inside. The door was scorching hot, so he used a cloth to open it, only to discover that the driver's seat was empty. Startled and confused, he wondered how the car had driven itself. He then made the biggest mistake of his life. He got into Christine. But that decision would soon cost him everything. The mistake had to be paid for, because Christine wasn't going to leave any witnesses alive that night. Suddenly, the car door locked itself from the inside, and Christine pushed the seat toward the dashboard, crushing the garage owner to death. The next morning, when Arnie arrived at the garage, he saw several police cars parked outside. Detective Junkins informed him that the garage owner's body had been found inside Christine. Arnie pretended to be shocked and said he had no idea how it happened, but deep down, he knew that Christine was behind it. She stood there gleaming as if nothing had ever happened. Meanwhile, Dennis returned home from the hospital when Lee called him, asking to meet. When she arrived, she told Dennis that Christine had completely taken control of Arnie. He had become obsessed and was now acting strangely. Dennis replied that he knew Arnie could never do anything wrong by himself, but if Christine had possessed his mind, then destroying her was the only way to save him. Lee agreed and went home. A little later, Arnie showed up at Dennis's house, driving Christine. He asked Dennis to go for a drive with him. As they drove, Arnie's behavior became more disturbing. He suddenly started driving at high speed and even let go of the steering wheel. Dennis panicked and shouted that Christine was out of control, begging Arnie to grab the wheel or they'd both die. But Arnie said eerily that no one could come between him and Christine. To prove his point, he swerved the car into the opposite lane at full speed, barely avoiding a head-on collision. Seeing his friend completely lost to madness, Dennis decided to take action. The next day, he left a note on Christine's hood, asking Arnie to meet him at the garage that evening. That night, Dennis and Lee waited for him inside the workshop. When Arnie didn't show up, they moved their plan forward. Dennis climbed into a bulldozer and brought it inside, while Lee stayed near the office. Their plan was simple. Once Arnie arrived, Lee would shut the door, and Dennis would crush Christine with the bulldozer. But what they didn't know was that Christine was already there, hiding in the shadows. Suddenly, her headlights flared to life, and she charged straight toward Lee. Terrified, Lee jumped and grabbed onto a hanging tire to save herself as Christine roared beneath her. Christine then backed up to attack again, but Dennis moved the bulldozer's blade in front of her just in time to block her path. Christine reversed and sped to the other end of the workshop. Dennis followed with the bulldozer, positioning himself directly in front of her. That's when they saw Arnie inside the car. He wasn't dead. He was driving Christine himself. He was completely under her control now. Christine's headlights glowed again, and within seconds, she began repairing herself automatically. But then, the bulldozer suddenly stalled. As Dennis struggled to restart it, Christine turned and raced toward the office to kill Lee once and for all. She smashed through everything in her path. In the violent crash that followed, Arnie was thrown through the windshield. Lee rushed toward him to see if he was alive, but suddenly, Arnie lunged at her and grabbed her, trying to attack. Unfortunately, a large shard of glass from the windshield was stuck deep in his body. As he took his final breaths, he reached out to touch his beloved car one last time, and then died right there in front of Christine. Lee ran away in terror, but Christine immediately shifted into reverse, trying to crush her. Luckily, Lee dodged at the last second, and the car smashed into a steel pillar, getting stuck. Dennis seized the opportunity and rammed Christine hard with the bulldozer. Christine tried to fight back, reversing and repairing herself, but Dennis and Lee worked together. Dennis drove the bulldozer over her again and again until the evil car was finally crushed completely. Even then, Christine's engine roared faintly, refusing to die. But Dennis pushed harder, flattening her until she was nothing but twisted metal. The nightmare was finally over. The next day, Dennis and Lee met Detective Junkins at a junkyard. Christine now lay there, mangled, silent, and lifeless. As they walked away, a small piece of her chrome grille twitched slightly on its own, proving that the demonic car still wasn't entirely dead. And with that chilling moment, the story came to an end.